Good evening. Is this right? This sounds loud to me. Who's telling me to lean in so there's not feedback? Is this what you want? Got it? Seems awfully loud, but I'll keep doing this. Thank you for being here tonight for our second town hall meeting to discuss our 2023 budget. And we had some very good conversations on Tuesday or Monday night. Is it Monday night? Yes. Tuesday night. And so we're glad to be back here again tonight. We've had a lot of questions coming in from citizens, and we've had more discussions between the council and the COO and the CFO, department heads. I want to thank everybody for all their hard work on this. Putting together a budget like this is not a simple process. We want to be very transparent in how we do it. We want to try to answer as many questions as quickly as we can. If we don't have an answer for you tonight, or if you sent one in and we haven't responded to it yet, I promise you we will be responding to those. We will be discussing the millage tonight as well. I can go ahead and tell you up front that the city has decided at this point, unless the vote changes, not to increase, to add a mill to our budget request for this year. There's been some questions about the request from the Columbus Municipal School District. I have been in touch with leadership there today. We will be meeting tomorrow to go over their budget request again, to look at the millage request and their operations request, and then obviously they also have bond issues that they have to cover. So we'll be talking about that with them tomorrow. We will have to have our budget approved. We will vote to approve it. The plan is at the next council meeting on the 6th, we have to have our budget in place by state law by September the 15th. So we will be working hard to get that done. And I appreciate everybody that's been working with us. I appreciate your patience as we move through this process. But we encourage you to ask questions. We want to be the best stewards possible of the citizens' money, and that's what we intend to do. There have been some questions we're going to go into a little bit more tonight about the police department and the fire department. These are obviously two extremely important departments within our city where recruitment and salaries have been a big issue. We feel like we're getting a good plan in place so that we can increase salaries there. We're not trying to cut personnel in those offices as far as the police force is concerned, especially, or the fire department. We're trying to get up to competitive salaries where we can reward the good officers that we have, and then also work hard to recruit officers. We're interested in finding officers with experience that we can bring in to help grow the department. The police and fire department will always be a top priority for the city, and I hope everyone understands that as well. Let me also make a comment, one more comment about the school district. We are, the council and I want to put the children of Columbus first. We want to be due diligent in doing everything we can to help us achieve the best school district in the community that we can. There's nothing more important than investing in our children. And so we're going to do everything we can to work with them in a positive and productive manner. And I want to make sure that that's clear. There's no argument going on between the city and the school district. I've had some very good conversations with them today, so I wanted to reassure everybody of that as well. Before we get started, I'm going to ask Vice Mayor Mickens to lead us in prayer, please.
Thank you, man. Father God, we come to you once again, oh Lord, just thanking you for who you are. We thank you for this morning. We thank you for this afternoon. Father, we just thank you for this time. And we thank you for your grace. We thank you for your mercy. We thank you for your loving kindness, your understanding, your peace. Right now, Father, we pray, Lord, let that peace, Father, that peace you say that surpasses all understanding, let us move through this meeting this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. At this time, I'm going to ask our CFO, Jim Brigham, and our COO, Jamie Garrett, to get us started again on tonight's presentation. What he will do in the beginning, or they will do in the beginning, is do a quick overview as we began last Tuesday night, kind of explaining the budget process. He will then go into the changes that have been made from the last meeting to where we are tonight. And then, as I said, talk specifically in more detail about the police and fire department. And then we'll move through the rest of the budget process. Once he is finished, we will allow questions from the audience. We encourage it. If you would just please come to the mic and ask your questions, and we'll do everything we can to answer them. Mr. Jim?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for coming out. It's a good sign that citizens are interested in the finances of their city. I take that, I'm relatively new to the city, but I take it very serious. And I hope tonight we can enlighten you a little bit as to where your money's come, where our revenues come from, how we're spending them, and then we'll get into a little more detail on some of the departments a little bit later. But this presentation is really talking kind of in generality about our budget. Just to make sure everyone is starting out kind of on the same page. You know, a municipal budget, each year cities forecast their expenditures and revenues that they'll incur during the coming year. And that formalized document is known as the municipal budget. Each Mississippi city is required by law to balance its budget each year. The budget is constantly monitored throughout the year to make sure that the city is not spending more or less than its revenues. Budget amendments are used if necessary to keep the budget in balance. What does the city budget do? It's more than just a document that we do once a year. It's actually a management plan where we talk about how we're going to spend the resources that the city is fortunate enough to receive. We try to involve, obviously, the mayor, the city council, the city staff. Citizens are always welcome to participate in this process. And all parties, we make decisions to best utilize, we have limited resources, and we make a decision to best utilize those to produce the greatest benefits for our citizens. The mayor, the city council, and interesting citizens of Columbus all serve as participants in its creation and execution. And I think that you'll see next year's the plan is that to really put together a budget committee, which would include city council, city staff, and citizens, to sit down and start earlier in this process, kind of identify in greater detail the needs of the city and how we can better spend the resources. So the budget's not just an accounting document, it's a management plan and planning tool. And it aids all of us in determining which objectives have the highest priority and will produce the greatest positive impact on our community. The next slide is kind of an introduction to everyone that's been involved in this process, starting with the mayor and the city council members that are listed up there. And they're all here this evening. The chief operating officer is Jamie Garrett, and I am the new chief financial officer. My name is James Brigham, but I go by Jim. We have 19 departments in the budget, and we have about 290 employees. And I will tell you that one of the goals of the city council was to make sure that we have about 90 employees that were earning less than $12.50 an hour. And one of the goals in this budget was to bring any city employee up to at least $12.50 an hour. And we are accomplishing that within this budget. The next one, you can see our 2022 budget expenditures was about $23.6 million. Operating revenue budget was $23.8 million. I'm pleased to say that the As you can see on the next lines down, we will be exceeding the revenues. Since year to date, we're already at $23,462,000. We will exceed that $23,008,000, and our operating expenditures are below budget at this point in time. Some of it is due to the fact that we have had vacancies in both the fire and police department, which we'll talk about later, but significant vacancies in those areas that, while it doesn't help from a public safety perspective, it helps from reducing costs. And our proposed budgets for 2023, the expenditure budget is 24.4, and the proposed revenue budget is 25 million. And I'll tell you that we're doing that without raising taxes from the city. The revenue projection, the increase of $1.2 million, we're projecting a sales increase of about $900,000. You can cross off the second line because I had proposed a $1 million increase with the current situation with the school district. We are not going to ask for that $1 million increase. So we went back and looked at where could we shave $195,000 and still not affect services, and we're able to do that. On the expenditure side, we're projecting an increase of $782,000 for the year. 4% increase for our city workers was $400,000. Bringing all city workers up to a minimum of $12.50 per hour was $300,000. And we're reducing the size of the police force, but not reducing the effectiveness of the police force. We are increasing individual pay to make the department more competitive with other departments and be able to stabilize the workforce for the police department. We're increasing the community outreach support. We are going to do a pay increase for elected officials, and I increased the fuel expense by $80,000 because I don't believe that gas and diesel and oil will drop back to what was originally in the budgets for 2022. I think they're going to continue to level it off at unfortunately high levels. So where are we investing? Where are the expenditures? Well, the best way to show that is showing how that bill is split up. So you can see the biggest area is safety and fire, and that's a big investment, over $10 million. We're investing into those two areas, and that's not untypical of most cities. That's usually the largest expenditure area. The next area is public works. That's your streets and your maintenance. That's $4.4 million. Administration is next. That includes both the city hall, both the staff and the city council, and also includes some of the outside services that we contract for, such as engineering services and legal services. Parks and Recreation is a little over $900,000. And then you can see the others debt. And that really is the debt that's paid out of the general fund. We also have debt that's paid through obligation bonds that we get. We have mill rates that help cover those general obligation bonds. So, but this is just the debt that's paid out of the, and this typically here, these are financing leases for the equipment in the city. So the projected revenue, by far, the largest category is sales tax. Our budget for sales tax this year was $9.6 million. We are currently at $10 million, and we still have 2 months to receive yet. So we're doing very well there. In the 2023 budget, that I have budgeted that to be at $10.5 million. And I think that we'll be able to reach that. As long as the economy stays relatively strong, we'll be in good shape with that one. The next biggest area is the ad valorem taxes. When this chart was done, we were asking for a windmill. I'll tell you that you can just subtract 200,000 off of that. One mill for the city is $195,000, and that 7.6 will be down to about 200,000 less, 7.4 and change. We have some of the other areas, light and water. We get fees from them. We get from the county, trash and recycling, and miscellaneous is just some of the other revenue generating departments, such as the Trotter Convention Center that we're in now, and the rentals and things that we do to raise funds for some of the businesses that the city owns. This chart here can show you what relatively, again, where we're investing the money. So you can see the two largest areas are the police and fire. The streets are the next, and then the administration is the fourth largest. And then the rest of the departments, many of them are smaller departments, but I want to show you on the next slide, you'll see how that compared to last year. So the blue is 2023 and the red is 2022. You can see that in a couple of cases, we're actually less than the 2022 budget, but in some cases we're above the 2022 budget. It's just where we're investing, and I will tell you that. So for example, in the police department, you can see that while it looks like we're spending less on the police department, we really are not spending less. We are actually focusing on the paying each officer more, and as we pay each of the officer more, we should be able to attract and keep better officers for our police force. That's very similar with the fire department, where we're doing a program with them, which has the same kind of goal. My last slide is the funds that we received from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. The city was fortunate enough to receive about $5.8 million, and we've allocated the vast majority of it. We have unallocated about $136,000. Where we have allocated is we've allocated $3 million for watershed projects. That $3 million we're hoping will be matched by the state to create a fund of $6 million to help with the watershed challenges that the city has. Some of the others is we are also giving Water and Light a little over $1 million. They came to us with the 3 top priority projects that they wanted to get done. It was $2,026,000. The city is paying half of that, with the hopes that the state of Mississippi will match that project also. That's 3 pumping stations, and since I'm not really a light and water expert, I will just tell you that they're looking to improve and put new equipment in to make everything more efficient. We did spend about $681,000 for incentive pay, one-time payment for our employees. And we have another project at 2nd and 10th. There's a culvert that needs to be replaced. It's a significant culvert, since some of the water lines, main water lines of the city, run beside that, next to that culvert. And we're hoping that the money that we spend to redo that area to stop the erosion will also be matched by the state of Mississippi. And we've made that application for that. And the last area is the Blight Elimination. We've taken $500,000 and allocated it towards Blight Elimination program to address some of the properties in the city that are in collapse or in disrepair. And that's my presentation. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you may have about this presentation.
Do we have any questions about this part of the presentation? Yes.
Mr. Green, I'm looking at the appropriation. Correct me if I'm wrong. What line item we on? 938. If I'm looking at a 100,000 cut, is that from the length? Where's this 100,000 cut from? Line item 938.
There's no cut from the link. I know what he's looking at, but I just want to make that loud and clear. There's no cut to the link.
All right, so, I mean, they had, at this point in time, had a $100,000 budget and had not received any funds this year so far.
Can't hear you. You line item 9
I'm not sure.
What number are you looking at, Jim?
Have you already gone into the opera? Is he going into the opera? Before we get that, let's do this, Vice Mayor Mickens. Let's see if there are any questions about this part of the presentation. He's going to present this next part right after this, and we'll get to that question. But there's not a cut to the link.
All right, I'm Will Sanders. Thank you for the time to ask some questions. My first question is one that I think a lot of people share, and it relates to the pay raises for elected officials. Who proposed the elected official pay raise?
A member of the City Council,
Which member?
Vice Mayor Mickens.
Okay. I would like to first recognize that a proposal of a pay raise of that magnitude raises the mayor's pay by 27% and 37% for the members of the city council, while only proposing a 4% pay raise for the many long-serving, hard-working city staff members. That's an insult, first to those individuals, and next to the citizens of this city. And I'm asking that be reconsidered. And in fact, I think one reasonable pay adjustment would be a city council pay reduction of 20% to find the money to help balance the budget. Next, I'll talk about an introduction statement, the confusion regarding the public, regarding the perceived cut to the police can be understood because the comparison of the current year budget to next year budget leaves out the usual concept of actual expenditures. So in comparison, the current year budget where you have 99 budgeted employees to the actual where you have much less does not correlate to the budget of next year where you're trying to right-size the budget for the police department based on knowing you will not recruit and retain 99 employees. So in the concept of leaving off actual numbers for departments, how does that correlate to the usual custom of comparing the current year proposed budget to the prior year actual or actualized year-to-date? And that leads into the question, where is the annual audit for 2020 and 2021 as we're sitting here discussing the budget for 2023? So,
which one do you want me to start with? I can tell you, I'll start with
The audit. 2020 audit, the outside auditors are finishing up the single audit. The city doesn't normally qualify for a single audit. A single audit, if you don't know, is a federal audit that's required when you receive more than $750,000 in federal funds. Typically, our city doesn't receive that. In 2020 and in 2021, we will qualify for that single audit since we had both CARES funds and ARPA funds that put us over that threshold. As far as the audit, they're finishing up that single audit, and as far as I know, the 2020 should be issued soon. We started the 2021 audit. I received email from them today with the tested transaction requests, and so we're rolling right into the 2021 audit, but it's just getting started.
can you put a finer point on the concept of soon?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, Will, whatever I say is going to be wrong. So I would, you know, I ask every day where it's at, and, you know.
Okay, and that's another thing, off topic, but the council is supposed to hold accountable its auditor, and need to step up on that. But what about the 2022 year-to-date actualized? So dividing by, if you've got 11 months of data, divide by 11, multiply by 12 to come up with a actualized figure to compare to our budget.
Are you talking about the police department alone or the entire city?
Citywide.
Well, citywide, it was on that, it's on the PowerPoint. Citywide, our expenditures year-to-date, so it'd be through actually probably near the end of August, it would have been 2 days ago. Our expenditures are $20,183,537. Obviously, we have two big departments that are below budget because they have vacancies in the personnel, both the fire and the police departments. The operating revenues, 23.4, and our budget there was 23.8. We will exceed that. We will probably exceed sales tax alone by nearly $1 million. So, and we still have those months to collect yet. So I'm just saying, I'm not quite sure what to tell you. I would tell you that year-to-date operating expenditures, obviously we have bills that continue to come in, and we have year-end accruals that we'll do when we do the closeout. But we are running lower than expected and budgeted. But at the end, if 24 or 23 million was the budget, I don't know that will exceed 22 million.
And yeah, I guess I was not saying on the city, not saying police department alone. I was saying all departments citywide. Was those metrics would be help with the understanding of the reasonableness of the proposed budget for 2023.
Well,
I think the detail which you can get from me it has both the budget from 2022, the budget from 2023. I have a center column that's hidden, but that shows year to date. And so I'll be glad to send it to you.
Okay. And then earlier submitted some questions that are kind of fundamental in the government of municipalities, especially the financial aspect of them. There's the Government Financial Officers Association that has some best practices for cities to put in place in their accounting departments. What best practice, and this is a rhetorical question, I guess, but what best practices are not being put in place and why? And so that would be something to consider as a council, making sure the accounting department is doing its due diligence in doing its best practices and is well-staffed with qualified, dedicated individuals. So those are my questions at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Will. Any comments?
I agree with Will.
Let me go back to, we're going to go through this again, but one thing to explain about the Vice Mayor Mickens was noticing that it didn't look like that the link was listed in our appropriations. One of the reasons that, and I should have said something to them about it, I just totally missed it when I looked at it. We pay that through a different process through the county. They don't send in their request for that this way. It's done differently from the time that the city left them, and then when we went back to them, we do that through the county. So that's why that shows there. But the link is still part of the overall budget. Thank you for the questions. I hope you got the answers you were looking for. I think Jim is going to send you the one that he didn't have in front of us. As far as I will address we all know that there has not always been good best practices in the accounting offices. We also know that, I've said this before, that we will be cited for those in the upcoming audit because even after the city was told to put them in, they did not all get put in place. And that's one of the things that Jim is working on to make sure we do have that in place. So that's not a new question or something that we're not aware of and very concerned about and will continue to work towards. I think I will comment on the audits. I think we will get them very soon. I would think within a few weeks we should have a lot more information on it. We've talked openly about what was holding those up. Once they're here, everybody will see them in their entirety and can also ask any questions that they have at that point. We are going to do everything we can to make sure the citizens have every bit of information that they like and want to see. As we're going through this process, doing a city budget, a municipality is not an easy process. It's not a perfect process. That's why we're doing these, so that everybody can ask their questions and bring their concerns to us. And we're going to do everything we can to make them answer all your questions. You're not going to agree with everything we're doing. That's understandable. What I have asked people to do is when we disagree, let's not be disagreeable about it. Let's do it with respect, and let's do it with the concern of the citizens. And if you're frustrated with the way that something is being taken care of, you can always contact me or your council members. We can't always respond to every question and answer within 24 hours, but we will definitely do the best that we can. We are getting quite a few questions, and we're going to work our way through this process. I will also remind the citizens that our COO and CFO have only been here a short time, and I'm very pleased that we're getting as far down the road as we can. Are we perfect? No, but we're going to continue to do everything we can to be the best that we can for the city. Now, having said that, I will take any questions about what I just said if anybody would like. If not, we'll move forward, Mr. Jim, and you can start taking us through. And I will tell you that there's some extra copies up here if somebody would like one of the line item budget. You ready? Oh, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
My question, on the basis of what you said, and Mr. Will as well, I've done some research on the Golden Triangle area in reference to city employees, such as your park and recreation, such as your street crew, and those of that department. The average rate for an employee in the Starkville, Clay County, Oktibbeha County area, and also the Knoxville County area, is that of $14.06. And that's for the average person that has been on that job for 1 year. That is the incoming rate for them. Our gentlemen that have been working for the city of Columbus, doing some of the dirty work for the city of Columbus, has been working now, making $10, some $11.10, and now it has been raised to $12.50, if I am correct. Being that the council, most of you have careers. And with these gentlemen and these women, this is their career. And that's the reason Columbus is not prospering financially, because majority of our city employees, such as street and whatever, is below the common average for the Golden Triangle area. I'm not talking about the state, I'm talking about the Golden Triangle area. And if we are going to move forward financially, I think that the rate in which was progressed for you guys, it should be impelled and placed for those to prosper as well, and not have to work every day and still need assistance with utilities, groceries, and childcare. That's my statement, and thank you.
Thank you. Well, I will completely agree with everything you said. We need to be due diligent in always bringing these salaries up. One thing I will add, and which we've talked to before, and we're looking at ways as to how to address this. We have had city employees leave and go to West Point or Starkville for a little increase in their salary, and then they realized that they didn't have the insurance benefits there that we do here. The city has some of the best benefits in insurance in the state. Our insurance for the city of Columbus is better than the state of Mississippi. Now, what we've talked about is some of our younger employees might not care about the insurance as much as others. But we have definitely had employees that have left and gone to Starkville or West Point and then realized they were making less because they were having to pay more for their insurance. Now, that's not to be an excuse of not paying them more. We need to. We've been studying those numbers as you have. We've been getting numbers from the Stennis Institute. We are dedicated to continuing to get the salaries where they need to be. You know, I think the council feels, and I'll let them speak to this too, that you know, we're trying to make a good, you know, it's also too that a lot of other positions where people have jobs, they wouldn't have the retirement system that they have here. So when we look at this, we try to look at all the benefits, but there's no question that we don't want anybody working for the city of Columbus that is living, you know, to me, it's unacceptable for anybody to be living in a poverty level when you're, you know, coming to work. A lot of our employees here, I've gotten to know them. They're passionate about the city. They want to do everything they can to make our city better. So I have no argument at all with what you said, and I agree. But I did want to add that one caveat to it. Anybody else want to respond?
To piggyback on what you're saying and to answer the young lady statement she made, and I want to be clear with this. It's not like we're not doing nothing. We brought them up to $12.50. Rome was not built in one day. This is just the beginning. We ain't say we're going to stop at $12.50. We went as far as we could go this year. If revenues come in better next year, if we can do better with our employees, we will give them another raise next year. But this is the beginning. It's just the beginning. And I want the council to feel good about what they have done with this budget. The mayor and council, don't feel bad about it. We have done good to bring the peoples up to where they at.
Mr. Sanders.
I'm not standing up here at this microphone all night, though I could. And I will say, while Rome was not built in a day, sandcastles can be built and washed away in 30 minutes. And unless you're doing long-time, forward-thinking, financially sound decisions, that's what will happen. This 4% across the board pay raise is very simple to understand due to its innate simplicity. It is not a highly intelligent plan. It is fundamentally flawed in management concepts. If you pay underperforming employees the same as you pay your good employees will find better opportunities where they're respected, even if they're paid less. So I want you to understand that.
We do understand that.
Yeah. So I'm asking to reconsider. Will you reconsider the 4% across the board pay raise to something more thoughtful to allow long-serving, good staff to be recognized and new, perhaps underperforming staff to be recognized that they chose to come in at the pay they agreed to?
Would you want to address the,
Since you're such a city expert on everything that nobody else knows but you, what do you want us to do?
It starts with human resources. It starts with getting someone in.
I would ask you, what figure do you want us to give them?
Use metrics. So the young lady.
What number do you want us to give them?
A reason.
You want us to give them 20%?
Supported by that.
Do you want us to give them 20%?
Absolutely not. I'm not going to pull out.
Okay then, so I'm asking you, you such an expert, tell us what you want us to give them.
I would use the data that supports and justifies fair rates and use their annual employee review to identify overachievers and underachievers. Underachievers get no raise. Overachievers get 8%, say.
The discussion has been that we would like to get to a point where there are merit raises. I know that's what you're referring to. We are in the process of, we have had many discussions about that. What we're trying to do with the 4%, and I was going to ask Mr. Jim to explain how there are some high-performing employees that will be getting a little bit more than the 4%. But what we're trying to do is get, and then also people that have recently got raises will not be affected by this, and new hires. We're looking very closely to make sure that, you know, raises across the board are not going to bump somebody up above somebody that's their supervisor in a particular area. It gets very difficult when you begin to look at the police department and the fire department. But I can assure you all the things that you've mentioned, we are looking at.
Thank you, Councilman from Ward 5. I highly recommend overachievers getting raises, and
Thank
you'll
you.
understand what I'm saying.
Yes. Jim, would you like to address the percentages for the?
Say that I'm not sure that anyone here disagrees with the concept of merit raises. You know, the 4% across the board, like you said, is easy, and it's not necessarily fair. But until you build the appraisal process and have the discussions with both good and poor performing employees so that these raises aren't a surprise to them, it's not fair to go to the merit process. Now, I know that I'm working with Pat Mitchell in the Human Resources area to take a look at the appraisal process so that it happens throughout the year, that it's effective. Poor performers know that they're poor performers because we put them on remediation plans. And at the same time, when we sit down with someone and say, this is your pay raise and this is your appraisal, and that they link together and make some good sense. And I'm 100% behind that, Will. I'm just saying we're not there yet. This budget does include 4% across the board for employees other than if you were hired or got a pay raise after July 1st, 2021. Those people, July 1st, 2021 to today, will not be getting the 4% pay increase. In addition to that, the city councils, in their wisdom, has decided to award special increases to some of our department heads that have worked very hard to make the city successful, and that is also as requested in this budget. Also in this budget, and I'm sure that there may be more discussion on this, but the pay increases for both the city council that has not received one since 2009 and the pay increase for the mayor are in this budget. And so this budget right now, based on the desire of the city council, is all in. It covers everything that you asked for.
And adjustments for police and fire.
Oh, and yeah, I do want to mention that, and Jamie was good to point that out to me. The police and fire are a special group this year, and we're really looking at both on the police side and on the fire side. And I had the opportunity today to look at the fire chief's recommendations for the fire department. I want to say that both those plans at this point in time are based on some salary statistics that we have received that kind of show to make us more competitive. And we have fully funded both of those programs, and now it's in the hopes. So if you look at the budget from the police department perspective, it looks like we're cutting the police department. Absolutely not the case. The case was that in 2022, that department was budgeted for 99 personnel, 74 officers. When I look at what we're operating at somewhere around 30 or 35, you can see that we have not been able to keep those officers at a good operational level. So what the chief has worked with us on, the interim chief has worked with us on, is coming up with a plan to have 55 sworn officers that are better paid and better trained and hopefully more effective, so that we can keep this force growing and make it a better, more experienced force, and we're not losing. You know, it's very common for police departments is once an officer goes through the academy and becomes a sworn officer, they can go most anywhere and get a job. And the key here is that we're making sure that we're paying them a fair wage. So both those programs, both fire and police department, are vital to us, and we're doing some special work for pay increases and that growth. I did want to say that I also made some other adjustments based on our discussions. I have obviously took out the 1 mil from the revenue projection side. So, and you know, that, and we continue to have, right now at this plan is a $300,000 surplus. I'd like to have that buffer because a significant part of our revenue is from sales taxes, and should the economy suffer and sales taxes go down, we want to have that buffer so that we don't end up having to do a budget amendments and whatever else we'd have to do to maintain the balanced budget for the city. And it is also my philosophy, and I think, Will, you pointed this out earlier, is that it's time for the city to start building some reserves so that when we want new capital equipment, we don't go out and borrow. We actually have the funds to go out and get it. You know, it's not unusual, and I'll tell you, I've worked with the debt in the city so far, and it's not unusual that we borrow money, and by the time the debt is paid off, the resource that we spent it on already needs to be replaced. So we need to be more proactive in our capital planning. I did add back some money in the administrative area for travel. I think that for people that are concerned about the travel, I will tell you that I am a proponent that our administrative staff needs to be well trained, and if trips to Washington D.C. can garner funds for this city, they're well worthwhile. I just hope that our federal representatives understand the needs of the city of Columbus. I added back, based on in the crime lab, I added $5,000 to supplies for drug testing. Claudette, the director of that, am I saying director?
Yes.
Okay. The director of that department pointed out that they're going to be doing the drug testing for the employees, so she needed more resources from that perspective. To help balance the budget, I did bring down the special projects number in administration to $200,000. That $200,000 will be earmarked for capital improvements that we need to do, from leaking roofs in our buildings to, you know, some of the vehicles that need to be replaced, and as well as unexpected needs that will come up during the year. And I guess the largest area that I was uncomfortable with on Tuesday night was the fire department, but I was able to go through the chief's requests and numbers. I think that his plan is fully funded at this point in time, and it's incumbent upon Chief and Jamie and I to sit down and make sure we're allocating them to the right people and in the right amounts. But I wanted to make sure that the funds were there.
We had a good work session today. We had the chief to come up and talk about the fire department in more detail, and I think it was very helpful to all. I think it's probably time we start going through the budgets again, the different departments, and then also get to the other allocations that we were discussing earlier, just to make sure everybody's clear. We've got department heads here for questions. So you want to get us going through that?
Sure. First thing I want to point out is that there was a question last night about the crime lab revenue. The crime lab revenue budget went from $35,000 to $90,000, and Councilman Jones asked about that. When I went back and checked why I made that adjustment, our year-to-date receipts in that area are slightly over $86,000, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to replicate that in 2023. perhaps even beat that if we get some new improved equipment in that cost center. The administrative budget, again, this budget was severely cut in 2022 to help balance a mistake in the budgeting process that happened. You'll see that we're asking for an increase of $366,000. Of that 366, 190 of it is in the payroll and personnel services area, and then there's 200,000 that's been added in there for special projects that was not in there in the prior year. That 200,000 will be used for whatever capital projects we identify, but I think it's important to have it in the budget. The crime lab budget is, other than the fact that I added the 5,000 to your supply number, I think it's fairly straightforward. 250,000 budget last year, it's 281 this year, and the largest driver of that primarily is personnel, although the supplies, adding that 5,000 for drug testing and adding a few more dollars, actually $8,000 more dollars for travel and education. This is a group that they're very technical in their skills and need to be continue to be current in how they handle their CSI work. The police budget we've talked about. It is, well, if you look at the bottom line, it's a decrease of $350,000. What it really is a condensing an unreasonable budget to 55 quality sworn officers plus about a 20 people civilian staff, paying those people better. Of the $350,000 increase or decrease in that budget, it really mostly lies on the personnel services line, but it's not that we're cutting headcount, it's just we're making it a more effective department. And that's the chief's plan, or interim chief's plan, I'm sorry. The court budget is fairly straightforward. It's up $44,000. Most of that's in personnel, the 4% raise. The fire budget, again, in this particular case, we're doing something very similar to the police department, but it's not the same because the police department is going from this level of officers down to this level, but better paid officers. The fire department is at this level, needs to go up, but in the meantime, what we have to do is make sure that the firefighters that we have and the staff that we have and the line leaders that we have are paid well enough that we're not losing them and we're not constantly trying to replace firefighters. So the strategy with Chief Hughes' plan is that we're going to be looking at trying to get up to 65 firefighting personnel, not civilian personnel, 65 firefighting personnel over the next 3 years by doing a better pay scale, better training, and making sure that the people that we train and we bring on stay with our fire department. I will tell you that the overtime process for fire departments is fascinating to me, and I studied it today, and I probably wouldn't pass a test if you asked me on it. But the interesting thing is that these people don't work 2,080 hours like most people. Their standard year is about 3,117 hours because they do 24-hour shifts and stuff. So it's a challenge when you look at overtime. It's a challenge when you look at staffing. But we're going to get through that, and we have put the funds aside to make that successful. The inspection budget, fairly straightforward. No big changes there other than, we're asking for increases in the pay raises in that area, including the director, and that just is reflected in the personnel costs that are the bulk, or actually more than the overall cost of the increase of the department. Public Works, and I want you to understand that I was absolutely surprised when the council said, make everybody $12.50 or above. And so what we did is we took people that were $10 an hour and made them $12.50. We took people that were at $12 an hour and made them $13 an hour. I had no idea what that investment was going to cost, but I will tell you that after we got through that whole process, we're investing $300,000 in increased benefits and pay for the street department. And that's primarily moving people from $10 an hour to $12.50. When you add $2.50 to somebody that works 2,000 hours, you're putting $5,000 into their pocket that they didn't have, or at least pre-tax into their pocket, plus benefits. And I just think that this was the right thing to do. I think that everybody would have liked to have gone further, but this was a significant investment for the city. And this particular department is a real winner based on that decision. The solid waste budget, it is what it is, as it flows through, I guess. So, the convention center budget, the trotter, and some of the, it's fairly straightforward. It's a $25,000 increase, almost, well, a third of it is in the personnel services. We did add some in the utilities area and in some of the supplies, and we need to, I'm looking at a process. We take deposits when we make revenue, but the deposits that go back to people when they cancel or when they get their deposit back comes out of the expense side rather than an interest account where that money should be held. And so we'll be looking at making some changes in that. Parks and Recreation has the same challenge right now, and but we need to make some so that it doesn't appear as if it's an expense rather than just returning money to people that have it coming back after they've rented a facility. The care and maintenance budget is fairly straightforward. No big changes. I did up the vehicle equipment from 100 to 125,000, and that's just needed because the equipment we have is old and in many cases wearing out. We are looking at a new lease program that would create a fleet concept for the city, and that should help both in the care of the vehicles, but also in rotating out vehicles so they don't become so old that they become unreliable. And but you know, in the meantime, we still have these vehicles that we struggle with keeping running every day, and that's why I raised that particular budget area. Community development and planning. The Blight program, the Blight Elimination program, we'll be working through that department. Those are funds that are coming out of the ARPA money. The actual expenses of the department for the year are only projected to go up $123, but you know, this department will be vital in addressing some of the rundown homes and properties that are in the city. Community outreach. We have an initiative where we continue to try to involve the city into the community as far as helping the youth. In this particular case, and Jamie can talk more about it, is that we did a summer program using CARES funds, and that I've put into the budget as a regular budget item going forward. But I think that, and I don't want to talk, I invite Jamie to talk about that.
I know there are concerns that we are duplicating services that other organizations already offer, but I don't think we could ever do enough to help our youth. And one of the things I want to do with the community outreach director position is incorporate that with the actual youth program. So you'll see more from that in the near future. Any questions?
I think perhaps we need to think about helping coordinate what we already have available rather than trying to, I'll start over. That director
Councilwoman DeChico, when I first arrived in Columbus, there was a child being shot almost every week. From the moment that we started our program, we had no issues in the park. There was an issue in the park almost every day when I arrived here. One of the things I learned from the Reclaiming Our Youth Summer program is that the people in the community respect when you do things for the children. We actually even had community members who came out and who supported us. The police department were out there pretty much every day. So I think we can't just say because someone else is doing something that we have to limit our resources. Columbus is big enough that we can have more than one organization that supports our youth.
Yes, but I think if we had someone to coordinate those organizations and to, is there a reason why our policemen didn't go to the parks before? I don't think that developing another department or program is what we need. I think it's coordinating what we already have.
And I think maybe we are misunderstanding each other because that's what I'm actually advocating for, that the community outreach coordinator actually works with the youth program. And so it doesn't just become a summer program, it's a throughout the year things that we do for children.
So you have 102,000 in the expenditures for projected increase, and then you also have a whole department. Am I understanding that correctly, that we'll have a budget of 145,000?
Yes, ma'am. It is the least funded department in the city.
So I think we have to realize we're not a nonprofit. But again, that's my opinion.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
I have a question on the funding of this community outreach department. That's a relatively new department for the city, and it seems like the answer being proposed is to take some unallocated dollars, allocate that to an unknown concept that's not been formulated. I'm asking, what's the plan to spend that money? What's the detailed plan on those funds?
The detailed plan would include much of what we did for the summer. On Mondays, we were at Sim Scott Park playing with the kids in the park. On Tuesday, we were at Hank Aaron. On Wednesdays, we were at East Columbus Gym, and we're continuing Wednesdays at East Columbus Gym. And on Thursdays, we were in Crows Park. We have also been, the council were kind enough to award us the activity center in Crows Park. What we actually want to do is actually have an after school every day where we talk to kids about debate. We talk to kids about other things like financial literacy and a wide array of things. But if you would like to help us out in coordinating our curriculum, I'm open to it.
So I think you kind of led to what I was asking. We want a plan. We don't have a plan. And I think before a budget approval happened, there'd be a plan that supports the amount spent and the objectives met or wanted to be met, and how are you going to measure that?
A plan was actually submitted this summer. And that plan was for a summer program. But since working with the children and the success that we had, we want to continue the program. So I'm sorry, I've been very busy.
Let me interject something. We're not going to spend another room talking about doing stuff for kids. The kids that everybody in this room constantly say we need to do something for. And if the city of Columbus can allocate $50,000, which is really nothing because you're sitting here complaining about $60,000 we're getting, and we don't have to get that. I mean, it's all type of other stuff that's going on. So we're going to allocate $50,000 to a kid program from a COO that came here with the plan originally from her hometown, and she's bringing that idea to Columbus. We've been dealing, during that program, with a lot of kids. Mr. George Lowe was there with some of them. You had them at Hunt Park cleaning up. You had them doing a lot of different things. So if we're saying that the city of Columbus needs to do something with our kids, and we're doing it, we don't need to talk about not doing it.
I agree.
All right. Let's keep going.
But metrics need to be put in place to make sure funding is achieved.
And she
The
actually told you
objectives.
if you want to come help her with that, we're all on. Anything that Mr. Will Sanders and Ms. Leslie Sorrell with ABC Columbus Matters wants to do, you can do it whenever you want to, when the setting is perfect.
Did the summer program take anything away from Boys and Girls Club? I mean,
It absolutely did not. After the Boys and Girls Club program was full, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Greg Lewis program was at 100% capacity. That's a different program. If I'm not mistaken, the program for the reading literacy at the Boy Scout hut was at a high rate of things. So it was a lot of different programs going on in the summer. If we can take $5,000 and give to the roast and boast, all right.
Thank you. Thank you for letting the citizens come and speak and to having a transparent process, and for the citizens here. What I would like to know is, that's a great question. You said the program has metrics and a plan, but the public was never given that. So much that I have asked for, citizens don't know, many citizens have come to me because they feel that they are attacked when they ask for public records of the city. The city council and mayor had a work session today, and you spoke of the agenda, which is good. I wouldn't have a meeting without an agenda either, but that wasn't made public to the citizens despite many requests. So we're following along blindly. We don't get the agendas. We don't get the same information, just like tonight. It was pointed out. There's a hidden column. So it doesn't make sense to us when we can't see the complete information. So I don't know if the council is aware. We've asked for the agenda and things so that citizens can be aware of this. If it's a good program, we want to support it. But if we don't have the data, the metrics, we don't think taxpayer money should maybe go to that. So are you aware that the city, and these are things cities are usually non-eventful. We are attacked for asking for an agenda, for what our taxpayers, and so I don't know if you all are aware, we're not getting that information and we're asking for it.
I'd like to know who attacked you. Who attacked you from the city?
I'm not gonna sit here and have a public meeting and call out names, but I'd be happy to meet with you privately. I don't think that would be appropriate.
Well,
that's like saying, everybody that says you guys' paper is trash, but we can't tell you who said it.
I'm not asking you to, but
That's
I've
what I'm
heard you
saying,
read
so
it
tell us.
anyway. I've heard you read it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you all. What I will say to this is that I'm not aware of agenda requests that you haven't gotten. That's probably my oversight, and I apologize for that. We will continue to do everything we can to get the agendas out for each of these work sessions. I'm very proud that the city council agreed to add a work session. Not all cities do that. We invite y'all to come to the sessions. It's open to anybody.
We do watch them.
Good.
Believe it or not, we have careers and
we
businesses
see your
too.
comments.
We do enjoy being a part of it, though.
Right.
Thank you.
And I'm not arguing with any of your requests. I will say that we are going to try to do everything to get the information to you that we can. I am sorry. I would like to know the people who, because attack is a pretty serious accusation, so I would like to know who attacked you so that I can address that. And
well, I think it's fair to understand when I may be the person making the request. We have citizens that are uncomfortable. I haven't made the public information request, but I have a feeling I'm probably one of the only people. We've talked to the media here in Columbus, and they said, gosh, I can't remember the last time I made a public information request. Maybe a year or so.
do we have the number of requests that they've made? We have the count of y'all's requests. I don't know if we have it with us tonight. But
Right,
we can
but I'm
share
just
that.
saying, I have a feeling I'm probably the only person,
Yeah,
or
and we
that made
talk,
it.
and when
So-
y'all make requests to Jackson and they call us, we visit with them and they
Well,
look
that's
into
great, because
everything.
I mean, some of our requests have been out since last December. It's not like we don't wait months patiently, but sometimes it makes us say, like just tonight, we don't have all the information, it's a public information. I'm sorry?
We have it, we have that.
They have it, but
We
yeah,
have it.
I can send it to you as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware we make requests and we don't get that information. And it's so.
Well, I know they are aware because y'all copy them sometimes, I believe. I believe you've emailed them directly, so they are aware.
And sometimes I do, but most of the time not. I try to go through what the chain of command is supposed to and how it's supposed to work, which is
Right.
typically bottom up, but
Yeah.
that hasn't always worked here.
Well, we're far from perfect, but I promise you we're going to continue to get every bit of the information that you request to you in a timely manner. There are laws that are set that we have to follow. Every time that you've contacted Jackson on something we weren't handling properly, we have responded to them and
Right.
talked to them.
Well,
so we appreciate you,
Yeah,
working
we're-
so hard to keep us straight, and we will continue to do everything we can to get the information to the citizens. And I'm not being facetious about that. I'm being very serious. We do want to get that information out. I have never and will never tell anybody not to send y'all anything.
Well, that's great.
And I would also ask you
lastly-
this too. I know some of the articles that y'all write, and I don't read your paper, but sometimes people
Oh,
bring
well,
it to
then
my
if
attention.
if you
I don't
haven't read
read
it,
it, but
you
what I
don't
will
need to
do
comment.
is that, I know some of the things that y'all report, that you just report, it's your opinion. It's always not fact-based.
Yeah, you can have your opinion, but
Yeah.
we can talk about that. If you haven't read
Yeah.
it, that would be weird to give an opinion on it.
No,
And then
I don't
lastly,
read
in
it
closing-
regularly, and I shouldn't have said that, and I'm gonna stop it here. I don't read it regularly, but I have read some of them.
Okay.
But all I'm saying, Leslie, is this: that goes both ways. You're wanting information from us, but don't report information that's not accurate.
Well, we've called you and you've refused to answer many times, so we do try to give both viewpoints. But lastly, what I would like to talk about is where we're coming from as citizens is we've got to learn when it's tax dollars. We can love the Heart Association, we can love the children, we can love, but it is tax dollars. So it's not that we don't love all these people and programs. We're just saying if other people are doing it and doing it better, maybe we shouldn't get in the business of everything.
Absolutely, and I agree with that 100%. We should always evaluate these things. Thank you, Leslie. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
I had a question. We were on the topic of striking a program. So, Councilwoman DeChico, in reference to said program, did you attend any of the events in coordination with the program this summer?
No, Jamie let me know, but I have a full-time business and I'm usually there until about 7 o'clock every night.
So tonight, in this public forum, you moved to strike something that you did not physically attend. You cannot assess the needs of the people if you have not physically yourself gone. So as we sit here and we go over each line item and we say, we don't need this and we don't need that, until you have actually seen the need in the actual communities that are suffering the most, then you cannot make such motions. That's asinine.
I asked a question regarding filling a position that's vacant when it's been discussed. If we have somebody who retires or leaves, a possibility to save money and direct those funds somewhere else. So we're looking at increasing the department that was left vacant, and we're also looking at an additional with the $102,000. We had a one-time amount of $50,000 dedicated to this program, and now it's being asked for double that amount as a budgeted item. I do have a right to ask a question.
That's correct.
Especially when I know that we have Boys and Girls Clubs, we have the Parks and Rec Department. Are they not doing everything they need to? I'm just asking the question.
You literally asked for it to be removed.
Yes, I asked.
But you have not seen the actual need that that program speaks to. You yourself have
All
not.
right, bring me the numbers, let me look at it.
The program, your COO lets you know all summer each time it was available. This information was made available to me. I have a job, I have family, the same things that you just listed out, but I made it a point of mine to get out here in the problem and see what's going on. I'm seen on 20th Street cleaning up outside of Hunt. The majority of people stop and they say, that's the city's job to do that. But everybody in the city doesn't realize that this sidewalk has not been edged since I've been living. That is a problem. So this is not directed at you. That is directed at you, but we all get in the business of pointing things out that we know nothing about. So I ask that you do show up to these programs. Next Wednesday, make your way to East Columbus Gym and involve yourself in that process. And then you will see why it's $102 on that list and why it will increase. Because we want to put the money where our future resides, and that is the youth. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I have a date that I can put on my calendar is booked. I will make it a point to be there. But when I get a call inviting me as badly as I wanted to go, Jamie always let me know when there was something going on, and I was always at the office. So it's not that I don't want to come and be there and be aware, but some of us still work, and I can make time if I have advance notice. And I moved people tonight, but I worked till the last minute before I came here. But as you said, this is important. The children are important. I totally agree with you. We just need a coordination in our community so we are not duplicating.
I do want to mention that this position, this department is supposed to coordinate. That's what it's for, to coordinate that, not our COO. One thing I've noticed since she's been here is that she's done other things other than operate the city. So we need to put people into place. We still have a void. We have a void in the department that you are moving to remove. The community is suffering. It's right before our eyes. And we won't even take the pride in sidewalks and communities that have been this way for years. And I actually get out there myself and go do it so I can speak in that manner. I have no problem. So make time. That's the best thing that we can do. We can make time for things that are important to us. And it's not even in your ward. So I understand why you're disconnected. The most problems is not happening in Ward 6. Born and raised Ward 6, I am. So I understand that completely.
This department doesn't just look at one ward, does it?
But that's why you didn't show, because if it was your ward, you would be there. You would know that the problem exists like that. You got to come from Highway 45 and really see what's going on. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we appreciate everybody's passion for the project. And did you want to say something else very quickly before we move on? Okay. Thank you for everybody's comments and thoughts in that area. Where are we next?
Where are the garage?
At the garage.
The garage department is the next area I'd like to talk about. I am going to make a slight adjustment based on a request. The subscriptions, we actually subscribe to a service where we can analyze the electronics in vehicles, and they need a little more. That cost has gone up, and so I need to put about $5,000 back into one of the supply accounts. But other than that, this department is fairly flat with last year. There's some ins and outs. I think the police repair and maintenance is taking down because we are going to have some new police cars, and hopefully they won't require the maintenance in the garage that the older police cars have. And then I did increase the public works, since while we are getting some vehicles, we continue to have problems with our public works, particularly our large trucks, our boom trucks.
Was it quick to cut because of the $500,000 that we gave to Public Works for their equipment, since they're in the same vicinity?
Yeah, that doesn't go through the operations budget. That's handled out of the ARPA funds. Wait a minute, I think that one may be CARES funds, but it's handled out of the CARES funds directly rather than going through a department. We try to keep the departments as clean as possible from special charges, because that way we get some idea of what it's going to take each year to run that department. When you get one-time special things like the $500,000 that we've dedicated to equipment for public works through the CARES funds, and we want to run that through actually the CARES fund itself so that it doesn't distort the cost of that department year to year. Okay. The next area is Appropriations Budget. We After taking a hard look at the requests, I have put this budget back to the 2022 budget level. A couple of areas. One, I need to put the Salvation Army back in, and I'm sorry about that, so I'll probably be a bell ringer this Christmas. So, but
it's a good thing to do.
and I think we want to discuss. I have $55,000 in there for the redevelopment authority, and I just need to know, does that stay or go?
I think the argument with the redevelopment authority with the 55K is because they now have a consultant who was supposed to be getting money for that particular reason. I mean, we asked to talk with the redevelopment authority. We hadn't had a conversation with them yet, so I was thinking that's why, because they now have a consultant who was supposed to be doing those things for them now. So that's why it was good.
Just to kind of bring everybody up to speed on the redevelopment authority was established how long ago?
Fall of 2014.
And why don't you give an overview quickly about how it was set up and the bond money, and then at one time the city was supporting it $55,000, right?
Sure, that's right.
Jeff also works as the attorney for the redevelopment authority.
So that board was set up. It's an urban renewal agency created by the mayor and city council to carry out urban renewal functions, which is a responsibility of the mayor and city council. They have the right under the Mississippi Code to delegate that to a subordinate board, which they created. And it's an all-volunteer board comprised of 5 members. The first board was appointed by Mayor Smith entirely with I think the right to overrule that by the city council, and from then on their appointments are made by the city council as their terms roll off. It's been its first couple of years, maybe 3 years, the mission was working to sell the Lee Middle School property and correct its blighted condition, which after a whole lot of work with environmental assessments and visits with archives and history, we got that sold to Scott Berry, who renovated it and unfortunately died shortly thereafter, but it's back on the tax roll, and it's a viable entity which has been cleaned up. And after that, the board asked the city council to approve the issuance of urban renewal bonds for the Burns Bottom urban renewal project, which is from just north of 7th Street, north behind Old Dewey, up to the back end of the Munson Brothers. We acquired 77 out of 79 parcels during the several years since that happened. It's been an arduous process to do that, but the process required us having each parcel appraised and then negotiate with the owners, securing title, in some cases doing eminent domain. Before a house can be demolished, we had to do environmental assessment and asbestos remediation. After that, we had to demolish the properties, so we're down to owning all but 2 parcels in that urban renewal district. After the bond was issued and we got the
and how much was the bond?
$3.2 million. After that bond was issued and the city saw that we had $415,000 we made on the sale of Lee Middle, the city council ceased funding the redevelopment authority for a number of years. The redevelopment authority has paid taxes on the Woody's on the Water property and done other service and incurred other expenses along the way, and so they're just asking that the $55,000 annual appropriation be reinstituted.
Give them an update too, where we are on the completions of Burns Bottom. They did come to the council, to the mayor, to ask for part of the ARPA money to help finish out some of the infrastructure issues that they're dealing with there.
Sure.
We declined to do that because we were trying to focus as much of it on for matching dollars, and we found that could not be matched, was our understanding. They did, as Councilman Beard was alluding to, they did hire a lobbyist to try to help in Jackson this past year to get the rest of, I think they need about $5 million.
That's right. If we did all of the development in one giant tract, since we've had been unsuccessful thus far in getting additional funding, the board is talking about perhaps picking a couple of prime blocks or one prime block and doing the infrastructure necessary to get that parcel, that block sold off, and then with the money from that to proceed to another block if we can't get enough funding to do all the infrastructure, curb and gutter, decorative lighting and things that would be helpful in having a first-class neighborhood down there. So
I was going to say too, once the council decided not to set aside $1 million, we also sought $1 million from Jackson in our request to the state. The Development Authority has looked at many areas for resources, but one of the reasons that it's more difficult to find pockets of money for this particular project at the federal or state level is because it's primarily going to be residential. There would be more assistance out there if it were going to be more commercial. Only a small portion of it is commercial. I am getting quite a few phone calls from folks who are interested in relocating there at some point. I've had people that had moved to the county who've told me that they're looking at hopefully buying a lot there because they want to come back to the city as they get older to be closer to their doctors, as we're trying to redevelop that area down there to make it more walkable and accessible. I think that's going to be I think it's going to be a game changer for the city once it's complete. I think where we are at this point is that we're trying to help get them over the finish line. There have been other redevelopment projects like this in Tupelo. In other places, we had a representative from Senator Wicker's office who came to town 2 weekends ago after we had been to Washington asking for support for our blight program and our watershed issues, and also for the police and re-entry programs in the crime area. They are very excited about all those projects. They could see how they're working together. They like the fact that the city has those priorities. But when she was here, we took the opportunity to update her because we touched on it in DC, but we didn't go into detail about what we were trying to do in the Redevelopment Authority. We did take her down there to see it. As we were showing her the blighted areas in the community, she was very excited about what was going on down there and promised to try to help us find other resources that could potentially be out there. So I say all that to say we are doing our due diligence in trying to help get that over the finish line. And I just kind of wanted to get that out there to the public and to the council. I know most of them know about this, but just for clarification. And you want to finish out with what you were saying? I'm sorry.
I will say too, just for the record, we get regular public record requests from the redevelopment board does from the media, and then responding to those. So the request for $55,000 is to continue the mission. We certainly have enough money to demolish the 4 houses that we own now that are in Burns Bottom and haven't been demolished. 2 of those are in the pipeline for being burned by the fire department in connection with the Air Force base for training. And the other 2, one of those I know is not suitable for burning because somebody came along and took all the doors and windows off the house, and it's not suitable for burning after that. And then the third one, it may be suitable for burning. I haven't talked to the chief in detail about it, but we don't have the certification that the asbestos is out of it yet. It is out of it, but we don't have the paperwork, and we'll need to get a permit from Kenny Weigel to demolish it or burn it, and then we'll proceed from there. But that will take care of all the demolition. We're negotiating with Jonathan Burns on doing the dirt work to smooth everything out in Burns Bottom so that it can be regularly bush hogged and maintained in a much better look than it is right now. It's unsightly and nobody can deny that. But it's lots of brick bats and pieces of old fence. And didn't want to try to do that piecemeal.
Right.
Once all the houses are gone, it should be easy.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that, council or citizens?
On the appropriations, see that, the library came, see Main Street is here. Each one of these people on this appropriation, they had a chance to come and make their appearance to us, and they chose not to. I see that they're here. They had every opportunity to come and speak to us like we've asked them in the past, but they've chosen not to come and give us any updates. So as they say, out of sight, out of mind. The redevelopment board is what I'm talking about. And then also, when I was in Tunica, we met with some people up there, and they said there's a bunch of federal monies out there that they could be getting also that would probably help them. So, the lobbyists should probably be focusing on that. But I do think the ones that did come and talk to us, like the library and Main Street and other associations.
Any other comments? Thank you, Councilman Jones. Any other comments on this particular area? All right, if not, we'll move forward.
Did I get the direction? 55,000? Did we make a decision on the 55,000?
We need clarity.
In or out?
Would y'all like to vote on that tonight? Or just continue the discussions once
We'll continue discussion.
We'll continue the discussions. Anything else on the budget that we want to highlight this evening? Let me do this before I forget. I wanted to make this announcement earlier, and I keep forgetting, but I want to wish a very happy 39th and holding birthday to our long-serving public information director. We call him Uncle Joe. And so he's 39. I forget which anniversary this is on his 39th birthday, but today is his birthday. He has been working all day. I think he took a little lunch with his wife today, but she even helped him set up here tonight. I like to thank Joe for all he does to help the city out. He's been in this role for quite some time. He is not a city employee. He is contracted in this role, but he has a real passion for the city and trying to help us do all that we can to move the city forward. So would everybody give Uncle Joe a round of applause for his birthday? Councilman Beard, would you sing? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
I had $1 million I could give more.
Okay, any other, we have department heads here. Are there any questions for them?
Mayor, I would like to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at the budget, it was tough for the city to come up with the budget, and I know there were a lot of emphasis put on the 4%. Now, if you would look at the employees that was making $10.30, if you take them up to $12.50, and this is for the audience, especially the Sanders, that is a 21% raise. I think there were about 90 employees that needed to get a 21%. So we didn't just go 4% across the board with all employees. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This is a start. And to give reference to the council that wanted a pay increase, they have not had not one penny for 14 years. So how could it be so asinine that the council want a pay increase? We're not just giving the city a 4%. We are giving some 20-some%. And we have special requests from some department heads that is getting more than 4%. So if you're gonna talk raises, please put the facts out there. Because if someone look at it and say the council got
$8,000 and the employees only got 4%, that's all you hear is that 4%. But if you're gonna talk, please be fair about it. And not only that, the council sat for months and tried to figure out a way and worked it out that we could give our employees for the city that $3,000 this year. Nobody mentioned that. It was a one-time payment, but we did allocate for them to get the $3,000. And now some of them getting 21%, so we doing the best we can.
Thank you, Councilwoman Stewart. We got a hand? Yes, sir.
My name is Don Durst. I'm a resident of Ward 6. I do have a comment. I'm here looking at the budget. I have a question for Mr. Brigham. Is the $300,000 surplus after the 1 mil was removed from your revenue or before?
It's after.
It's after. Okay, so there is that. As far as a resident, one of the main reason I'm here, a lot of people in town have whether it's a real or perceived lack of value for the services that taxpayers are getting now versus what we were getting in the past. Everybody feels that's declining a little bit, or from my perspective, it's declining a little bit. And when we talk about pay raises across the board, totally advocate all of your employees getting pay raises, advocate you guys getting pay raises as well. Your cost of living's gone up just like mine has and everyone else's. Where a taxpayer is going to have a hard, bitter pill to swallow with that, to your one bite at a time reference, I would encourage the council and the mayor to look at limiting your pay raises to 4% per year. And then at the end of your term, it's been 14 years since the council got a raise, but it hasn't been 14 years since every councilman and the mayor ran for office at that set pay scale. And so I would ask that you limit your raises to a 4% per year. And if that's not adequate at the end of the term, at the end of that term, then vote a large enough pay raise for the next council and the next mayor, whether it be the same people sitting up here or not, bring you up to where you need to be with your surrounding counties or with yourself. I totally understand it's doing business is harder today than it was 2 years ago. It costs you more to live today. It costs you more to drive today. Every department revenue is going up except for a few, and I understand the changes in the personnel. But quality of life, when it goes to having a community outreach coordinator, those are the things and the services that are going back into the community that we feel like we need. I also think the redevelopment authority is one of the services where we need money going back in and bringing quality of life and getting value for the tax monies that we as residents and taxpayers are putting in and feeding the bulk of this revenue in here. A lot of people, myself included, really feel that we need to get the value for our money, and we would like to hold our elected officials at a little bit of a higher level to that when it comes to your pay raises in such large increments, particularly when the biggest elephant in the room is going to be how much more taxes we're paying when the school comes in and asks for a large chunk. And I think everybody knows that's coming. It hasn't been decided exactly what that number is going to be, but we're all going to be paying more and probably getting a little bit less. And so I ask you, whether it's $55,000 for the redevelopment authority, or $102,000 for community outreach, or the $60,000 for the pay raises in the administration, it's not a lot at each chunk, but all those bites make up one big damn elephant. And so try to take that into consideration for everybody else as we sit here, look back, and look at when we're discussing raising taxes, whether we removed a mill last night or not. There's still a lot of bites in that apple, and hold yourselves to a higher level of accountability and consider limiting the pay raises to 4% per year, and then giving yourselves a big one for the following council.
Thank you. Appreciate it. What I will say to that too is that as far as the school board is concerned, I want to re-emphasize for the school district that, they have not asked for a mill increase for quite some time. If you look at the schools that we have here, the conditions that some of them are in are, it's not adequate. I don't think we can ever invest enough in the children and the future of the city. Education is what changes many of the factors that we're facing in Columbus right now. Poverty, lack of job opportunity, crime, all that feeds back in from education. There's data to back that up. So I promise you, it may not seem like it sometimes, but we work very hard to try to make sure that we're being the best stewards of the money. I appreciate your comments, they're all well taken, but I really don't want this to turn into something where it looks like the municipal school district is coming in and doing something underhanded or slapping us with too much at one time. You have to go back and look at, for years they've been trying to do something at a smaller pace to keep up with what they felt was the needs of the schools. And there's been a disagreement on that board at times. And so there's been quite some time since there's been any kind of raise. But when we reach back out to them about this particular situation, they are very eager to visit with us to see what they want to do. They take this very seriously as well. And so I just wanted to say that on that behalf, because I don't want it to look like there's a divide between us and the citizens on this. We're going to report back everything that we learn. It'll be very transparent. You'll know very soon. But as I have encouraged people in the community, as someone was mentioning earlier, even if you don't have a child in the Columbus Municipal School District, if you don't have a grandchild, it still impacts the city. I would encourage y'all to go to their meetings. They had several budgeting sessions as they work towards this budget. They make those announcements. Sometimes we've got some school board members here tonight. Sometimes it's hard to get all that communication out. But there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into that. I would also encourage y'all to visit the schools. I try to go out and read to the children in the schools sometimes to see what's going on, visit with the teachers. There's people that don't even have children should be interested in the school district, right? Because of what I said earlier. The education of these children is the future of our city. The better we do in education of our kids, the better economic development is going to be. When people look to move to a city or area, they ask for two things usually. Ask how your schools are doing and what's your crime level. All that ties back in together. So it's easy to lose sight of what we're dealing with. A lot of these issues that we're dealing with have been coming at us for quite some time. And that's why, I added an extra session to this to give more people. I'm just going to be honest, I'm disappointed more citizens don't show up. I know everybody's busy and that kind of thing, but it's good to try to be here and ask the questions. I appreciate people being respectable with their questions. I know these are tough decisions, and it's easy for us all to get a little cranky about things or get our feelings hurt. That's not helping the children. I will argue that one of the things that has held our city back and our county, and not just here but across the country, is when adult politicians get in the room and act like children and don't work together. Everybody takes everything personal. You've got to put that aside. If you are truly interested in trying to move our city forward, you take your feelings out of the equation and you try to compromise and work together. And that's what we're trying to do with the Board of Supervisors, with the Municipal School District. But we are focused on trying to help our children. We're also focused on trying to help the elderly in the community. Those are the two most vulnerable areas. It's not easy to get to these answers, but I can tell you, and we all think differently, and we all have different initiatives and agendas that we're more passionate about, and everybody thinks that we don't get along, that it's very toxic. That's not true. We try to communicate, and everybody, I can tell you that everybody at this table, everybody wants what's best for the citizens. Now, everybody might not see the same avenue of getting there, and especially when it's affecting your pocket in your department and all those things. It's easy for people to get in silos and focus on those issues. But we are trying to bring everybody together as much as we can, have these open conversations and explain. We're never going to make everybody happy. Just, you can't do it. But I will say, and I know the council feels this way too, we appreciate everybody being here that took the time to come out. We appreciate everybody that has given us their strong opinions. And we are not a perfect city, but we're going to continue to work as hard as we can be to be the best that we can for the citizens of Columbus. Does anybody else have any more comments or questions before we adjourn? Mr. Mitchell.
It's definitely for the children of the city of Columbus. But I want everybody to understand that we have constituents that my phone has been blowing up, both of my phones have been blowing up from my constituents talking about the increase in the meal. I mean, we have to weigh both sides. We're looking at the children, then we're looking at the meals that we're gonna put on the household. And the household is gonna affect what the children get. I mean, we have to weigh both sides, Doc. Both sides, and that's all we're saying. And I see Ms. Shoemaker out there. We appreciate y'all, and I appreciate the mayor meeting with you guys tomorrow, and I pray that we can come to a common ground. You know, I pray that we can. You know, when I got my house, I didn't pay for that house at once. I'm still paying for it. But next year it'll be paid for. But it took time over a process. If you guys can help us, I'm throwing myself at your feet, Ms. Shoemaker.
One thing we needed to touch on just briefly is the Parks and Rec budget. Mr. Jim and Jamie, what would y'all like to say about that? Parks and Rec.
Well, I will say this. First of all, we're sorting out the Smart Fusion, which is our software issue with the Parks and Rec. The Parks and Recreation budget is going from 906 to 933. You know, one of the challenges that our director has in this area is funding some of the sports. And when I looked at the revenue that he gets for registrations and rentals, those come into the general fund, while he needs more money for referees and umpires and that type of thing. And what I'm thinking in this particular case is I'd love to see the Parks and Rec be able to stand on its own. So if you're going to have baseball pays for itself through the registration fees and pays for the umpires. And so what I'm thinking about, and this would be new for the city, but I would like to take and reroute those revenues that he generates from registration back into his budget so that they're paying for umpires, they're paying for equipment, so that, as a matter of fact, you know, year to date, his registrations on just the sports registrations about $30,000. Well, if he put that back, if I roll that back, get $30,000 back into his budget, he would have plenty of money for the umpires and stuff that he needs. And so I think we have to be a little creative when it comes to Parks and Rec. Other than that, I'm recasting some of his budget numbers to the accounts that he wants them in. But other than that, I do think that there's an opportunity here. I'd like to encourage our revenue generating departments. So for example, the Trotter here, the convention center, I'd like to encourage them to develop more revenue. And the one way you do that is to revenue share with them, so that as they do a better job and they raise the revenue, that comes back in and benefits their department and makes their department better. And that's a philosophical thing, and I don't have the mechanics for it yet, but I think the first area we'll look at it is applying it towards Parks and Rec.
I think the Department of Recreation, them being able to pay for themselves, that's probably going to be a little harder because you want to keep registration down for, you know, most of the kids out there, a lot of them out there can't afford, you know, a high registration fee. So it's going to be something that, you know, you have to balance.
Yeah, I don't want a high registration fee. I want more kids.
Right. Well,
I don't want the registration fee to be a barrier so that children don't get a chance to play sports. You know, if we were going to do that, I would be a proponent of no registration fees and free sports. But I do think that when you're talking about direct expenses for umpiring games, and, you know, I think that if we do take in registrations, that ought to pay for, sustain that sport and let it grow, rather than $20,000, $30,000 going into the general fund, which is probably better reinvested back into the park and recreation programs.
Well, I think once we get done, you know, redoing some of the fields and different things like that, maybe we can have tournaments out there to help people with. I think that'll be the bigger revenue draw than anything else. I think is having tournaments with teams coming from out of town. Plus, it also helps your economy also, whether they stay in hotels and eat at your restaurants. So I think that, you know, once we do those fields, I think that'll be an increase.
Thank you. Anything else?
I can just feel Greg staring at me, to feel the pressure. Parks and Rec's budget is not final. Mr. Jim and I will get that to you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, everybody, for being here. Safe travels home, and we appreciate you seeing you.